The Super Bowl, two of the best teams in the NFL face off against each other to see who's the undisputed champ. They play for money, glory, and fame. It is so popular that it is the most watched broadcast in the entire world each year. It is so popular that people purposely watch the commercials. And for many coaches and players, it is the biggest game of their lives. The question becomes then, if you're a coach or a player, do you take more risks or do you play it safe if you're playing in the Super Bowl? Does the fact that it's probably the biggest game you'll ever play in your life change your play calling? Does the severity of the game change your risk tolerance? That's what I'm going to be answering now. So, what does a risky play in football look like? That would be something like going for it on fourth down, or blitzing on defense on third down, or maybe even an onside kick. The reason these plays are risky is because if they don't succeed, you put your opponent in an advantageous position, which could ultimately lead them to win the game. So when you go for it on fourth down, you give your opponent good field position, which could lead them to score a touchdown or a field goal. Or blitzing on third down. If you don't sack the quarterback, then you left your cornerbacks one-on-one coverage with the wide receivers, which could be an easy completion for the opposing team. Or an onside kick, just like the fourth down conversion. If you miss it, then you give your opponents really good field position to score. But if there's a lot of bad things about these risky plays, why would you do that? The reason is because there's a lot of benefit if you do convert these risky plays. That fourth down conversion, rather than having to turn over the ball, you get to keep the ball and keep driving down the field to score. If you successfully blitz on third down and you sack the quarterback, well, it's fourth down for the other team, and probably a long distance too, which means that they're more likely going to punt the ball and you'll get the ball back. Or an onside kick. Typically this is used for when you're down late in the game and you just need to get the ball back to score. And if you complete it, well, there you go. You get the ball back and you can go down the field to score. You get that opportunity that you wouldn't have gotten otherwise. So it's really important to have risky plays in your play calling repertoire, but knowing when to use them is critical. Does the importance of the game actually make a difference in when you call risky plays? If you're in a regular season game versus the Super Bowl, do you decide to go for it on fourth down in that regular season game, but don't in the Super Bowl because of the severity of the game that it's in? Or do you go for it on fourth down regardless of what game you're in, and it's just the best option in that scenario? Some say that it shouldn't matter, that your play calling from one game to the next should not change at all. But you should take into consideration the severity of the game when play calling, because the penalty for losing in a regular season game is much less than the penalty for losing in the Super Bowl. Losing in a regular season game, it doesn't matter because you have 16 other games that season to make up for it. So you can call these risky plays. If it didn't pan out, that's okay because you have 16 other games in the season. Well, if you lose the Super Bowl, that's it. That was the one game you needed to win. There's no redos. You have to wait till next season until you can attempt to get to the playoffs and make it back to the Super Bowl. One of the riskiest play calls in all of NFL history was probably Super Bowl 49 with the Seahawks versus the Patriots. The Seahawks were down by 4, they were on the 1 yard line, they had beast mode in the backfield, and they just had to throw the ball. And what happens? They throw an interception and they lose the game right there on the spot. The safe play would have been to run the ball. You have one of the best running backs in the NFL in the backfield. Just hand him the ball and let him get the 1 yard he needs. Everyone in the stadium and everyone watching on TV was expecting a run. Not a single person was expecting a pass play. But the Seahawks decided to pass the ball instead, and it went down as one of the worst play calls in NFL history. But here's the thing. If they completed that pass, that could have gone down as one of the best play calls ever. And the reason for that is because it was a risky play. Everyone's expecting a run, so you pack the box and you try and stop the run. But instead, you pass the ball and you complete the touchdown to win the Super Bowl. That would have been the greatest play call ever. But they threw the interception, and history speaks for itself. The vast majority of people would have ran the ball if they were in the Seahawks position. And there's a reason for that, and it's because no one likes losing. But more importantly, no one likes losing in an embarrassing way. If the Seahawks would have just ran the ball and the Patriots stopped them on defense and the game was over and the Patriots still won the Super Bowl, no one's going to criticize the Seahawks for running the ball. That's not an embarrassing way to lose. That was the safe play call. The Patriots would have been commended for their great defense. This is where the increased cost comes from in risky plays, because it also takes into account the social aspect, or the social cost. If you're going to risk it all, you better win it all, because if you don't, you will never hear the end of it. A good example of this is Super Bowl 52, with the Philadelphia Eagles against the New England Patriots. A little play called Philly Special, or Philly Philly. In essence, it was a pitch, then a pass to Nick Foles for a touchdown in the Super Bowl. It is known as one of the greatest play calls in NFL history. It was a risky play that paid off in the end. It led Philadelphia to win their first Super Bowl ever. Now imagine if the ball was picked off and ran back for a touchdown. That play call would be criticized just as badly as the Seahawks play, especially if the Patriots won that game. The point is, risky plays are risky for a reason. They pay off really well when they succeed, and they hurt you really badly when they don't. And how often you execute these risky plays depends on your risk tolerance. So whether a coach calls a risky or safe play depends on the coach's risk tolerance. If they have a high risk tolerance, they're more likely to call these risky plays. If they don't, they're going to call safe plays. It seems that this era in the NFL, the teams who make it to the playoffs in the Super Bowl are the teams who have a higher risk tolerance, the ones who take more risks. I mean, look at the two teams in the Super Bowl this year. You have Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, and you have Jalen Hurts and the Eagles. Every game you watch of Patrick Mahomes, he's always making crazy plays, crazy throws down the field, crazy runs. Always super entertaining, and there's always risky plays going on. I mean, you see Travis Kelce doing designed lateral plays, and even some impromptu lateral plays. A team with a low risk tolerance would not be executing those plays at all. They wouldn't even think about it. And the Eagles, they have the highest fourth down conversion rate over any team with attempts over 20 on the season. Not only attempting more risky plays, but they're also successfully executing these risky plays. And when you have a good team, you can take those risks. The reason for this is because there's less consequences. You can go for that fourth down conversion because you know if you don't make it, your defense can stop them. Or you can be a little more aggressive on defense because you know your offense can go down the field and score. When you have a good team, it really opens up your playbook a lot. It's important to note that your risk tolerance doesn't actually change. Only as your team gets better, the cost of risky plays decreases. Deciding on whether to call a risky play or a safe play really comes down to the individual. There's no right or wrong answer to the decision. So if you were in the Super Bowl, would you risk it all or would you play it safe?